500 years ago, he washed ashore the sole survivor of a shipwreck. And upon the skull of the man who killed his dad, he said, I'm mad, I must eradicate piracy, injustice and cruelty, and all my sons will follow me, so evildoers will believe that this man cannot die.
The Phantom,
the ghost who walks,
the Phantom,
enemies beware, the Phantom's always there, but you won't find the Phantom, he finds you.
G'day everyone, for those who came in late, you're listening to Expand, the Phantom Podcast. This is episode 131, October 2019 Comics and News. My name is Dan and I'm joined today by Jermaine. How are you, Jermaine?
Hot. It's hot.
Give yourself a rap, mate.
Tickets on himself.
Are we talking about myself or? No, I'm good. We've got our first hot day of the year. 36 degrees in middle of spring. So,
well, we're all just glad that you've put a shirt on for us, so we appreciate that.
I mean, one thing that summer's coming. Well, I didn't know what type of clientele we were going for, so I thought I'd better just play it safe.
And surprisingly, back from his overseas sojourn, we're joined by Stephen. How are you, Steve? Welcome back.
Very well, thank you. It's great to be back, Dan and Jermaine. And it's not 36 degrees here. It's probably closer to 6 degrees, I think.
What's that around? Are you in your PJs?
Yeah, well, it's 9:30 over here. We've got daylight saving. As soon as I finish here, it's off to bed.
So anyone checking out the podcast today on YouTube can get we put Jermaine in a shirt just for you. I'm also wearing a Phantom shirt. It is quite warm up here as well in Queensland. And you'll have to go to YouTube to see exactly what manner of jammies Steve's wearing. And are you in the back of a car?
I am. We recently bought a new car. First time I've ever bought a new car off the off the floor, and I must say the back seat of a Subaru Outback is quite spacious, and it's got more room than the front seat of a Toyota Corolla.
There you go. All right. Well, hopefully it's not as comfortable, and you won't fall asleep on us tonight.
I'll do my best.
Very quickly, while we did mention you being overseas, can you give us a quick rundown of visiting lightning strikes? We can't give this. We know we've read an article on ChronicleChamber.com that you penned for us while you were over there, but can you give us a quick insight into your afternoon visiting lightning strike comic books?
Yeah, it was blinking and miss it type thing. I found where they were for starters, and one thing about Ireland is it's very pokey, lots of streets running off everywhere, and but I found where lightning strikes are, which they're within a college, so they actually teach graphic design and all that sort of stuff to students, and they've only just started their school. It was a couple of months ago now. They just started their school year, so they were pretty flat out, and got down the corridor and into their office, and I really wish I took photos, but it was blinking and miss it type thing.
You all the way to Ireland. You couldn't take photos for us.
What's that?
We sent you all the way to Ireland.
Yeah, I didn't take a stinking photo.
Did you know we actually had someone who seriously thought that we actually sent you?
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't know. They must have thought that we got some really good paying Patreons. But, just for the record, we, Chronicle Chamber, did not send Steve to Ireland or a catch up with Lightning.
I have a day job, and they sent me to Ireland, which was awesome. But I was able to get to Ireland a couple of days before the pilgrimage started. So on the day before the pilgrimage starts, on a Tuesday, I was able to get over to Lightning Strike and meet the team there. So there ended up being three in there. I can't remember the girl's name, but there was Owen.
Yep.
And I can't remember the other guy.
Was it David?
It could have been. And their messages and their, you know, when we're doing our podcast and things are going ding the whole time. He was flat out. But the original artwork for, I think for Lightning Strikes 1, the one where the painted Phantom on the horse, on the hero.
Yes.
Yeah, they've got that sitting up on a wall. There's I've seen that picture before. And they got a Saviuk, but that wasn't a Phantom Saviuk, it was a Marvel. And yeah, Cy Barry up on the back wall, that print of knocking the bag off on the Dachshund. Yeah, and the passion that they spoke with for the character, hopefully that was coming through in my article. But yeah, they're really trying to do their best with the character, and and hopefully we can all read their stuff soon. Well, have you guys already got your 4? I haven't got mine yet.
No.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Or should we just go straight into that one, or should we wait? Should we follow the
No, we'll follow the run sheet. We'll come back to
it.
it. And yeah, well, Stephen visiting Ireland, it wasn't on the run sheet at all, and I only just remembered it when we started talking to him. So while Jermaine waves his kids away,
It was on the run sheet.
Hey,
it was on the run sheet.
Stephen visiting Ireland.
Oh no, that wasn't.
No.
I thought you were talking about the
No, lightning strikes is.
so
Anyway,
my kids are
yes.
in the background.
While Jermaine waves his children away, Steve, in our last episode 130, we did a bit of a Sophie's Choice. We talked about those 5 or 6 topics, the which would you sort of thing. You've said that you'd like a right of reply to those, or you'd like to chirp in, and you refuse to comment on our social media posts. So what? I'll set the timer. We had 5 minutes. We had 5 minutes, 10 minutes total for each topic, didn't we? If I remember rightly.
Yeah,
I reckon be concise, and I just need 1 minute per topic. I reckon.
I reckon we give you
keep it nice and quick. Sorry.
I think we give you 1 minute to cover the lot.
Yeah.
If you want, you ready? Your time.
If you want longer, you can join the podcast.
Your time starts now. Go.
Remind me of the questions. What are the questions? You got to give me the question.
Oh, I thought you had them all sitting there. Colour versus black and white.
Didn't he? How organised do you think I am? What was that?
Colour versus black and white.
Black and white, mainly because I can live without seeing the comic in colour. But I'd rather a black and white comic than no comic at all.
Okay, fair enough. Frew versus Egmont.
Frew. And my reason for this, because I was listening to you guys as I was driving the other day, but the way I see Sophie's Choice is you've always you've had Egmont in the past, but now you no longer have access to any Egmont in the future. You've still got the memories of Egmont. So all those stories still exist.
No, that doesn't
interrupt me, Jermaine. Just no, don't interrupt. This is my 1 minute. So Frew still have access to all the Egmont stuff that's already come in the past, and so they can still publish that. So I'm going with Frew.
Well, that's not how we argued it, but anyway, your time's running out. So
I know, but that's why I was arguing it back to you guys when I was listening to
it. Dailies versus Sundays.
Dailies.
Because?
I like the argument about that's what you got the original art of, and seeing as Duncan's just picked up a bit of his original art for me, and it's a daily, I'm going with dailies. But also there's more of them, and yeah, I'm just going with that.
Cool. Ray Moore versus Wilson McCoy.
Ray Moore. And I'm in the same boat, but nowadays I'd go Ray Moore, in a heartbeat.
Okay. And in terms of purchasing collectibles, do you prefer eBay or Gumtree or your online classified type sites?
I've never got anything off Gumtree. I've got very little off eBay. The buy swap sell things are pretty good off Facebook, but probably if it was either eBay or Gumtree, I'd probably go eBay.
Okay, fair enough. There was a surprise 6th topic too. Do you remember what that was, Jim?
Yeah, that was Frew Publisher.
Oh, the Frew crew. Because every time, and I think you mentioned this, Dan, and that's what I was thinking at the same time. everyone gets better. The next one always gets better.
Yep.
So like you're standing on the shoulders of giants. So, if we're doing this another 50 years time, and we got another publisher, I'd probably say them.
All right, very good. Well,
and that's
well
not
done.
discounting anything that's come before.
All right, you covered all 6 of them in less than 3 minutes, so well done.
Hey, half the time I thought it was going to take.
All right. Time to move on,
even
though.
if you changed the rules halfway through.
What was that?
That's
Even
right.
though you changed the rules halfway through.
No, I meant to set the rules up at the start. And I realised that I hadn't.
Well, you can't change the rules from what we established the rules were a podcast ago.
Well, if I was on the podcast, I would have rearranged the rules back then.
Well, bad luck. All right. Let's charge in now to the actual...
Yeah, won't argue about it now.
Okay. Let's charge into the news from October 2019. And the big one is, for me, the big one is the one I'm very excited about at the moment, is Billy Zane coming to Supernova. It's only a week away as we speak in terms of, so we're recording this on a Sunday night. It's only actually 5 days before he appears in Adelaide. May well be in the country right now. We don't know. We don't have the Chronicle Chamber reporters to just camp out at every international airport in Australia, unfortunately. If we did, we would have someone on the ground, but we don't. But it's only 5 days as it stands till Billy Zane is going to make his appearance in Adelaide at Supernova. And then a week after that, he's going to be in Brisbane, which is what I'm excited about because that's where I'm going to see him. We have had a bit of news about what Frew's doing. And they have they're putting out a special issue of the regular comic. It's 1852, I think. Is it going to be 1853?
Yes, 1852.
1852. And if you go on Facebook or on Frew's website, you'll see the cover. It's a Glenn Lumsden portrayal of Billy Zane as the Phantom. There's 2 copies of or 2 versions of the comic that are going to be on sale. The regular newsstand issue that has, the Skyband story in colour in the background. We should say that the entire story is going to be full colour, coloured by Ivan Peterson, which is fantastic because the last time we saw it, it was in black and white. And while that's good enough for you and me, and I think you too, Jim, you said colour, black and white. The colour version is going to be there for us to compare to. And there's also going to be that Supernova special cover, which is the same Glenn Lumsden image, but against a black background, which is going to be, easier or nicer for Billy Zane to sign. So that's the news from Frew.
It's good that they're doing it.
Black texter.
Yeah, I do hope he's got a white texture or a gold marker or something like that.
Yeah. I'm sure he will.
I'm sure he
but
will.
It's brilliant that Frew is doing this. Just because it's it's cashing in. A lot of people will be now going to buy the comic to get signed by Billy Zane, and that means more sales for Frew, which everyone benefits, I guess.
And the black issue really pops, I reckon. The image on the black background really pops out.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, having seen the 2, I probably do prefer that actually as the cover. So I'll certainly be looking to get one each of those. Not sure that's what I'm going to, because signature series wise, for those who are interested, obviously Glenn Lumsden as the artist will sign this. Lots of questions as to whether Billy Zane will be signing the signature series for Frew. The answer is a very expensive no, because it was certainly at Supernova, Billy's charging $70 per autograph. And
is it 70 or 60?
70. As someone who has purchased said autograph tickets, I can tell you for a fact it's $70 per ticket. So it's pretty pricey and it certainly doesn't fit within the signature series budget. At $70, is that, if you're spending $70 on a Billy Zane signature, is that the item that you want to get signed?
I don't know. I'm not getting one, mainly because I won't be there and my hot water bottle just blew up. So that's going to be a $2,000 exercise, getting in the hot water.
Right.
Because I can't let the family have cold showers forever while I get a Billy Zane fan signed. But no, so it probably wouldn't be my first choice. But to be honest, if I was going, I would probably get that as well, because you could, in a sense, you could get Billy to sign it, Glenn Lumsden to sign it, and Jeremy McPherson to sign on it as well. So
Can you just
having
explain
a
why you'd
comic,
get Jeremy
'cause they're all
McPherson to sign it?
involved with, because he's doing a short story inside the comic as well. He's doing a story with Philip Madden, who's the Egmont artist.
Okay, so you would get Billy to sign.
I would probably get it. I would get that. So then that way, then I would also get Glenn,
Lumsden.
Jeremy, and even Philip as well, because that would be cool to have multiple signatures on the one comic.
Yeah, sure. And there's a lot of black space to facilitate that. So yeah. I'm still in two minds. I'm unlikely, to be honest, to get that. Oh, I was going to grab that. I'm unlikely to get that signed because I do have other things that I want to get signed. And $70 for, you've got to be very thoughtful about that. And I'm also keen to make sure that I'm value adding to whatever I get signed to.
So something that no one else is obviously going to kind of get. Is that what you're thinking?
That's what I'm hoping. And also, that's the basic plan. So, yeah. So at this stage, something that I don't reckon anyone else would get signed is my copy of 1146. Through 1146, The Disappearance of Prince Rex. I'm just holding that up for Jermaine and Steve to see that one. I reckon I might get this one signed. Any thoughts why?
I think there's an advert.
Why would you?
I think there's an advert in the back or something like that.
On the back cover, there is. There's an advert.
Oh, there we go.
On the back, there's the ad for Frew 1147, which, to be frank, obviously is probably far more likely to be the comic that I get signed. And I was very pleased when I dug this out, actually. I was worried that collecting back in 1996 when I was, 19, I might not have kept it in pristine condition, but it's actually in pretty good nick. So I'm pretty happy with that. I was worried it might have been a bit more thumbed through and a bit more red.
I think that's probably going to be a very popular choice. And I think it's a good choice because it's actually a photo from the movie.
Yeah.
It was my first choice straight away.
Yeah. And it's probably a bit of a shame that Frew were unable to be able to not replicate that, because you wouldn't want an exact replica of that, but it's a shame that Frew weren't able to maybe get a photo image of Billy Zane for the cover. I mean, the Glenn Lumsden picture is very nice, but I think it would have been probably more appropriate to get a still from the movie.
Yeah. All right.
I'm not going to show you the other thing I'm going to get signed. I'll show you after it's done.
I think that's fair enough.
Surprise us.
Yeah. Okay. The next thing we want to talk about is some of the new products that are available from around the world of the fandom. And we're going to start, Jermaine, I want you to fill us in on the Sal Velluto prints that he's taking to Luca Comics and Games Convention in Italy. That's this weekend. It opens today, actually. Or
no, Wednesday.
Wednesday coming. So it's coming as well.
Probably
so,
by
Jermaine,
the time this goes out, it will be in the next day or so. Yeah.
Pretty soon. So over the end of October, start of November. So can you fill us in a bit on the Luca prints that are coming?
Okay. Well, all the details are on the website, on the social media. Basically, Sal Velluto and his colorist and close friend, Eugenio Mazzaroni. I'll just guess that. They're doing some prints that are based on some covers that Sal has done. Through Sal and ChronicleChamber, we are bringing in 20 for people to purchase. At the time of recording, we have 2 copies left. So if you're still interested and you've been umming and ahhing, there's 2 copies left, and basically first in, first dressed. All of the examples are on the website. There's videos, there's photos, there's stuff on social media. So just go and have a look at that. It's pretty cool that we get to do it, as we get to help Sal as ChronicleChamber.
Yep. And obviously the first time we've been able to do something like this. So it's a bit of a trial run for us. In case people are worried about us profiteering on the contacts we've been able to make, we're absolutely not doing that. It's absolute cost price for us to get these. We're paying exactly what Sal and Eugenio are selling them for at Luca. We're paying full postage to get them over to Australia, and we're only asking that we get those costs covered for the fans who are purchasing them off us.
And the $85 includes shipping to Australia as well.
Yeah.
because we don't like being charged something and then having to pay shipping on top. So we're doing the total including shipping.
Yeah, so that's $85 to your door, from Sal's hand to your door.
Yeah.
Geez, we're good blokes.
You better believe it.
We have our moments.
But
All right.
there's some other cool stuff coming up as well.
There is, and that's Jermaine's subtle way of reminding me that I'm supposed to speed through this far faster than I wanted to. So very quickly then, the Brazilian items from Ludi that you've discovered and written an article on, Jerm.
Oh yes. So there's 3 that they've released. There is a pillow, which I probably like the most. The pillow. A travel mug, yep. and then there's like a coffee mug, which we've all seen. Now, they're all using the same imagery, which is Sibari images from the 90s, I believe it is, in colour. They're pretty cool. They're about $20 to $25 Australian, but with Brazil, postage is a killer. So we do go into all those details. On the website, in the article, we kind of give you the ways that you can purchase it. Probably your best bet is to hit up a Brazilian fan, give them some money, and see if they can find something for you. Once you ship it all over, I would probably recommend you budget about double of what we said. So if you want one of each, it's probably going to cost you maybe $100, maybe $120. So it's not cheap, but they do look nice.
Are either of you getting them?
I'll probably be getting them eventually, but I'm in no hurry to get them. And I probably like the pillow the best.
Okay. All right. Steve?
Yeah, I'm just checking them out now. They look really good.
Yeah, they do.
But yeah, as much as I'd like to get them, I'm not in a position to get one at the moment.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Which one do you like the most?
What's that thing on the left? It's a coffee sippy cup. I do like the cups.
Yeah.
The mug's very good too.
Yeah, I probably like the coffee mug most myself.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. The next thing is Pod 66 have released a new range of fandom merchandise. Now, Pod 66 is a English concern coming out of the United Kingdom, and they've got a huge range, really, of shirts, hoodies, jackets, T-shirts. I mentioned those, singlets. A really big range for men, women, and children, different sizes. And off the top of my head, I think it might have been 16 or even 18 different designs as well. So that's a massive thing to have just come out. Have you guys had a chance to check those out?
I think when you released it, I was in Bali at the time, so I had a quick look. But no, I probably won't be getting any of that. The problem that I have with those and the things that I like about the Brazilian stuff is that everything's same. All the designs are the same, and I'm just a little bit over it. But if they bring out something new, I might be more interested.
I'd probably encourage you to go back and have another look then, because I thought there was a really good, like 18 different designs. And yeah, some of those are the same ones we've seen before, but there were some there that certainly haven't been in publication or production for a long, long time, if ever. So yeah, certainly I'd encourage people to go and have a look. Look, up front, I'm probably not going to be getting any of those. Just the cost, the dollar versus the euro, or the British pound as it is, and then
I can tell you firsthand how shocking that is.
Yeah, right. And then obviously shipping as well. So yeah, it's probably a bit out of my range at the moment, but
they did have free shipping for over a certain amount, though, didn't they?
Oh, that's right. They did too. And actually the price of the shirts now, remember, the price of the shirts, and you only had to buy 2 things and suddenly we're into the free shipping market because of the price of them. So, yeah. So, look, I'd love to hear from anyone who does go and purchase anything from Pod 66 and let us know. In the research for the article too, I sort of found out that they're pretty small concern in terms of the business and the business model. So, looked like it might have been a little bit print on demand, and I could only find one staff member at the company who owned it and seems to be running the whole thing. So yeah, I'd be very interested in seeing the look of them, but at this stage, it doesn't look like we're going to be doing a video review on them anytime soon.
No.
All right. And the final thing that we've got listed here is some more of Guy Possaint, the cards that he has been releasing periodically, probably over the last 2 years, I'd say. Phantom cards, his coloured versions of Wilson McCoy and Ray Moore artwork. Jermaine, I know that you did buy some of these. What were your thoughts?
He's always got a high quality to his work. There was, which one was it? I think the Tiger one, from memory, was probably one of my more favourite ones. Just because I like the textures and I like the work of the tiger and stuff like that. Is
that it?
Yeah, that was probably one of my favourite ones. I think today or yesterday he's just announced a new Christmas set as well. So for if you're still listening and you haven't made up your mind yet, go and check.
He does very good work on the back.
They are quite nice, and you can get some Christmas.
Yeah.
The thing that I probably like the most about his work is the level of detail. Like, just hold up the back again, Dan. Just talk so people can see that. Yep.
Yeah, no, remember it records all of them. It's a bugbear of yours. Remember that? But yeah.
So the thing that I like about that is that it shows up. He's got detail. He's got the level of care, the level and stuff on it, which I think shows that he's still got a passion for it, which I think's good.
Absolutely. And there was first time he's released an Italian set as well, and they by Italian favourites, should have checked that these are all held up the right way, but coloured in red this time and colour on the back as well. And the set of Christmas cards that are coming as well, he does like those. So not that I'm sure that anyone is going to probably post them off to anybody, but they certainly look good as decorations around the house at that time of year. It's a great excuse to bring some Phantom stuff out into the family room. Here's one that I got last year, so I'll be looking to get those out again. And also, and I know I'm probably just showing off a little bit here, but I'm showing off Guy's work, which is important. This is a really cool large card, which is the Oath of the Phantom, very glossy as you can see, and on the back the Oath of the Skull. So he does some brilliant work, and I personally am a massive fan, and I think I've probably got one each of everything that he's produced so far, and we'll probably continue that way.
Yep.
In terms of how you get those, there's a Facebook group you can go to. For Those Who Came in Late is the name of the site. So just do a Facebook search for Those Who Came in Late, and you'll find that pretty easily. All right, so that pretty well covers all of the new things that we wanted to talk about, which are all things that have us very, very excited, of course. Unfortunately, there's been some sadder news in the Phantom world recently. Not tragic yet at this stage, touch wood, of course, but there's some sad news about the health of two of the three creators, I guess, of the newspaper strip at the moment, in Mike Manley, the artist of the dailies, and Tony DePaul, who, of course, writes both the Daily and the Sunday. So,
do you need a moment? Sorry, I feel like you're struggling a bit there, Dan.
Oh, it's not great news.
No, it's just like you had a burp or something like that. Like you're struggling a little bit.
Yeah, well,
gas or something.
The best thing is that you drew everyone's attention to it, so that's great.
I didn't even notice.
I'm trying to keep a straight face because it's a very somber subject.
Yeah, no, it is.
You've just started pissing yourself laughing.
I know, and it makes me look like bad because
That's no respect.
I forget them being sick.
Yeah, and look, to be fair, I think that both Tony and Mike have got a very stiff upper lip, certainly in public at the moment. Just to detail those a little bit, I'm not going to go into great details about their personal situation, but Mike has spent the last 3 to 4 days, maybe a week, in hospital with a staph infection in his leg, and we all know that can be quite serious. It seems like he's on the mend, but we've all heard, I think, pretty bad stories about people who pick up staph infections, and so he seems to be on the mend, and was working in hospital the whole time, and that's well documented on Facebook if you want to go and follow him there and check out what he's been posting. Tony DePaul.
I wasn't aware of that one. I was actually wondering, what was going on, because I haven't been on Facebook.
Yeah, right. Okay, so go and check that out and give Mike a like and some thumbs up, and wish him all the best, because he certainly has been appreciating those kind comments. Tony DePaul is not on Facebook, and so the way that we found out though about his journey at the moment is via his blog on the Nickels of the Man, the website that he runs there and posts on periodically. It's mostly been about his motorbike journeys over the last 6 to 12 months or so, but just recently he's published there the fact that he's been diagnosed with lymphatic cancer, and has been telling and sharing a little bit about his journey to recovery there as well. And it does, I don't know how closely you've been following the blog, guys, but it does sound like it probably was more serious than he'd hoped when he was first diagnosed. And so anyway, he's getting chemo and going through treatment and all the rest of it. And so, of course, we wish the very best to Tony and to Mike in their recovery back to full health.
Exactly. Yep.
Absolutely.
Very good.
All right. Well, not much more that we can say about those, other than to hope that we have really good news about those things in the future. So that brings us then to the next thing that we want to talk about, which is the news from the various publishers. Now, we've already touched on Lightning Strikes and Stephen going over there and seeing the production over there firsthand. But we've got some news in terms of the way that the books are finally coming out. Jermaine, you probably got your finger on the pulse with this one as someone who's got the orders in and is sweating on the tracking numbers. Can you give us a bit of information about where Lightning Strikes are at the moment?
Okay, so as of time of recording, we have confirmation that there has been some people from Europe that have actually received their full orders. And this includes issues 3 and 4, but mainly issues 1 and 2, which is the people that have originally ordered. We do have word that Phantom's Vault does have issues 1 and 2, as well as issues 3 and 4. And we also believe that some of the issues that Phantom's Vault are getting in will be signed as well.
So they've arrived. Phantom's Vault has actually got those now.
No, they're on their way.
Right, okay.
But the ones that have arrived are in Europe, which is obviously a little bit closer to Ireland than what Australia is.
Okay.
I think it has to go around the world twice before it's allowed to land in Australia.
But you have had
number 1.
Yeah, the issues ones that we've got, like the 3 of us, they were from America, and then the issues 2 were the ones that Jamie Johnson brought from Supernova. But a majority of people didn't have issues 1 or 2. So that all those orders are being fulfilled, and people should be receiving their tracking numbers. Oops, excuse me, now it's my turn. And stuff like that. And then issues 3 and 4, which Owen recommends that that you do order through someone like Phantom's Vault, because you probably will get it a lot quicker.
That said, you have actually cited issues 3 and 4,
yes.
haven't you? You've held them?
Yes. Yeah, I've held them, so they do exist. We ran a competition for those who came in late, and I think it was Ryan has received them and has read them and has enjoyed them. So we basically, Owen sent us a copy so he can prove that they do exist. We've flashed them on Facebook, and then we gave them away as well, which is what we're part of. We don't keep stuff like that for ourselves. We give it back away.
See, and I went all the way up to Ireland, and I still didn't get the chance to hold one. I still didn't see one in the flesh.
Oh dear, the things you've got to do.
That's it. But it's a bit of a bummer that it's taken so long. But I guess they are coming out. We will do a podcast on all 4, and we're going to wait until they become available on Phantom's Vault, so that way everyone has had a chance to order them, read them before we do our podcast.
Yeah, very good. All right, another thing that is, I guess, hotly anticipated, and we've been waiting on for a long time now, is the Hermes Press news, and that's the JFK trade paperback. What's the news there?
Well, we've seen the cover, and then we've received word that the trade paperback will be released in December, and we've also
just in time for Christmas.
Exactly. And I've also received word that if you had pre-ordered issue 2, because originally it was going to be 4 issues, and so they released one, and then there was going to be the second one that you could pre-order, Which way's that way's better? If you no, that's issue one. We've already got issue one, Stephen. So if you pre-ordered issue 2, you will get the trade paperback for free. So pre-order means that you've paid for it and you've been waiting for it. So that's good news for those who have pre-ordered. For the rest of us, I didn't pre-order. You're just going to have to pay for it.
Yep. And if you've got a local comic shop, I'd recommend putting the order in there. I've certainly done that, and that's probably the most reliable way without, I suppose you could go to Amazon or whatever as it comes out. But, personally, I prefer to be able to go to a bricks and mortar and pick that one up just because of the way Hermes Press have been. It seems to be the most reliable way for me to pick up a copy.
And you also support your local comic book shop. Most local comic book shops are run by small businesses. It's always good to support your a local small business as well.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right.
My shop's just recently moved too.
Well, there you go.
It's close to home now.
Oh, well, that's
handy.
a good thing.
All right.
Means you can go there more often.
Drop more of the hard-earned. All right. Speaking of closer to home, or in fact the exact opposite of that for Australians, it's a tough segue, but you guys are giving me nothing. This is a bit of news that, as we speak, has not been posted. Sorry, I missed all that because I'm going to talk over the top of you because we're in a hurry. So
it's going live tomorrow as we talk. So by the time this goes out, it will be live.
Right. So what we're talking about is a web post that is going to be, as we speak, is not on ChronicleChamber.com, but will be in the very near future. So hopefully will be by the time you listen to this. And that is big news that the Phantom is being published again in a country we've seen it being published in before, but not for over 2 decades. So a lot similar, I guess, to the Phantom's return to Brazil, which we've seen in the last 12 months or so via Mythos. We're seeing the Phantom return to a European country in this instance, and that would be Hungary. Once again, Germ, you've had your finger on the pulse with this one. So what's the news?
Okay, so yeah, well, it looks like they're hungry for more Phantoms, so they're bringing it out. Boom tish.
See, that's how I led you into a segue. It's way easier to do.
But no, in all seriousness, some people want to focus on the fact that the Phantom magazine is closed. I would rather focus on the fact that now they've got a better product. Now, we've also seen the Phantom come in Spain in the last 2 years. We've seen the Phantom come back to Brazil this year, and now we've also seen the Phantom come back to Hungary as well. So I think it's brilliant news that we're getting the Phantom is coming back. This is one of their leading comics titles that's been published probably for the past 30 years, I believe this magazine's been around for, in different forms.
You mean the publisher?
The publisher in different forms. They're going to be doing newspaper stories and also Phantom Men, Team Phantom Men stories as well. This is more interesting, actually, watching Stephen blow his nose. So yes, it's really good news to be able to have the Phantom coming back to a country that we haven't seen for a while.
So what sort of commitment have they given so far in terms of the numbers of Phantom stories per year? How long they plan on that? Because as you say, that the publisher has been continuous, but they've stepped out of the Phantom universe. So
So this is a different Phantom publisher, although it used to publish it. But this magazine or this publisher has been around for like 30, 40 years, and then they bring in new titles ever so often. So they've brought in ones like Modesty Blaze, Rip Kirby, and some other well-known ones in Europe ones as well. So it's I guess it's going to tell the numbers are going to decide whether it's a continual thing or not. Probably the best way to describe it is it's almost like a comics review magazine, which is the US one, which brings out different comics from around the world, and it targets those who like newspaper styles comics.
All right. And
So,
as someone who's got probably as much reach as anybody, Germ, what's your approach in terms of getting yourself a copy? Because I know you're going to want a copy of this book.
Yeah, so I've actually...
Do you have mates in Hungary?
Yeah, me
Of course you do.
personally, I've got someone over there that's actually getting me a couple of copies of every issue. For the common Joe or the common Dan, there is a subscription link in the article. So that's probably your best bet. Now, they include shipping for Hungary, but I'm not sure what the shipping rate for the subscription is for overseas.
Okay. All right, cool. All right. Well, on that note, that's, I think, the last of the big news that we've got for October, and we look forward to seeing what eventuates in November. Just to recap on those, I think we can probably say that in the next 2 or 3 podcasts, we'll have some recordings of Billy Zane at Supernova, and hopefully we'll be able to review some of those Lightning Strike and maybe even the Hungarian comics as they come through. I'll touch back on that in a moment. This is, of course, the time where we would have our Monkey Mail segment, and I'll just edit in here Jermaine's little sting that he put in for us last time. But unfortunately, no one has sent in a Monkey Mail question this month. So if you've got one, make sure that you send it through to us via our email. It's probably the most reliable way, chroniclechamber@gmail.com. All right, that said, we need to move on to reviewing some comics, and I just talked about those, the Hungarian, the Brazilian, the Hermes Press, and that sort of stuff. We would particularly like it if we have Norwegian listeners, Hungarian listeners, or Brazilian listeners who would like to review their nation's comics for us. We're about to enjoy Michael Lick's reviews of the Team Fantomen stories that come out via Sweden. And we really appreciate him doing that. If you're listening to this and you're in Norway or Hungary or Brazil and you'd like to contribute, please get in touch with us. We'd love to include your audio reviews or video reviews in the podcast. That would be fantastic. Jermaine, you might have to get onto your mate in Hungary to actually review the comic for us, because he'll be able to read it.
Yeah, might have to. Yeah, we'll see.
Yep. All right. Well, I think I'll just straying slightly from the run sheet. I am going to insert the Michael Lick's reviews here at the 50-minute mark as I look at the screen, just to mix things up a little bit and get those international reviews up ahead of our stories at the moment. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Mikkel.
Time for another Fantomen review. Start off with issue 20 of 2019. It has a cover by Henrik Sahlström. It's not his best cover, but I like Fantomen, especially the face, but other than that, it's kind of dark and not my favorite motif. And it features a story, Jan Lafitte's Skatt, or Jan Lafitte's Treasure in English. It has a misprinter on the cover. It says Tony DePaul wrote it, and the art by Terbetti, but that's not true. It's a Team Fantomen story written by Claes Ramerti and art by Kari Leppänen. And as I said in an earlier review, that I think Kari Lepänen's the dark panels are really good and the light panels are not as great, but overall it's a story about treasure hunt. I won't spoil the end, but it's on par with the regular Team Fantomen story. It's not a highlight and it's not the worst. It's in the middle of the stories, and Team Fantomen stories is my favorite story, so I was satisfied. And there's in the editorial pages, it talks about the book fair in Gothenburg, the biggest book fair in Sweden. It also talks about Johnny Hazard, that has been a side comic for the Fantomen, being probably given out as a standalone book in the future. Next up is issue 21, and look at this cover. I think this is gonna win cover of the year. It's also by Henrik Sahlström. This is magnificent. I really love this cover. It has Phantom riding on Hero with Devil on its side, and it has these scouts in the background and a big skull and the full moon. Yeah, it's great. And here the story is actually written by Tony DePaul and Terry Betty. It's called Barnsoldaterna, that would translate to the child soldiers. So I was under the impression that we would read the Child Soldiers of Makar that was published by Frew for not that long ago. But it's not that story. It's the story that's called The Ghost Story, that is a Sunday. And I got a bit disappointed by that, but if we talk about the issue, it's okay. I mean, it has really lots of old jungle sayings, which is nice, and the story is, I mean, it's a good story for a modern Sunday, but I was still hoping for this, the Child Soldiers of Makar. That would be great if that would be translated in Swedish. And in this editorial side here, it talks about that the Team Fantomen universe has not Dr. Lamanda Loaga for president, but Dailies and Sundays has. And it also says that in issue 24 this year, something big will happen around this. So let's see what happens. That could be really big. It also have the next issue will be the last part of this story arc about the fight against Singh with the 22nd Phantoms. So and it also will have the story Prince Rex Kidnapped by George Olsen, Keith Williams, and written by Lee Falk. And that will come out in October. It also have this subscription offer that you get a fabric bag, and that will be cool when my yearly subscription run out. And from what I've heard in Facebook, these two new issues has gotten to the international subscribers much quicker than earlier issues this year. I've heard some horror stories that someone didn't get an issue for many months. So let's hope this is working as it should now. And here it is, the issue 22-23 of 2019. It also has a nice cover from Henrik Sahlström. It includes the concluding story of Fight Against Singh and Familjeanlägenhet. That's a family business, written by Claes Remerti and art by Janus Orden. It also includes the story Prince Rex Kidnapped by Lee Falk and art by George Olsen and Keith Williams. They decided to print that in black and white. And even though its original was black and white, since it's a daily story, I would prefer it if it was colored. But I know there's a lot of Swedish fans that really like the black and white era, and hopefully they enjoy it more than. But it's not a great story at all by any means. But back to the main story, the concluding of the arc. It's pretty good, but as I said about the earlier one, it's lots of different storylines. It can be hard to keep track of all of them at once, but pretty good. But it's really good if you have the 3 earlier stories fresh in memory. And even though this ends this arc, I would say it's not the end of the 22nd Phantom line. It ends with a hint that there's more to come. The issue, as usual, ends with some information about the next story, and that's this story about, it's called A New Hope. Now, it's not the Star Wars story, but about Laga. It's written by Mikael Sol and art by Anthony Spey. It will be really interesting to read that in November. And it also includes a daily by Lee Falk and George Olsen and Keith Williams. Then we have this year's soft cover books. This is the 5th. It comes out annually. And the theme this year is noir. Last year it was pirate theme. It starts off very good, I would say, with this Team Fantomen story. And that is very much done like a noir detective story. And that's, as I said, the Team Fantomen story by Idi Carelli and Hans Lindahl. And then there is 1, 2, 3, 4. No, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4 Lee Falk Cyberry stories from the 60s. Some of them are credited to Ray Moore, but it's Cyberry, all of them. I can say the names. So the Team Fantomen story is Mistaken Identity, and Lee Falk Cyberry stories are The Wharf Rats, The Bad Ones, The Satchel, and The Crime School. And then there's a 2-page story from the Phantom Strikes issue number 3 called Final Chapter, written by Andreas Eriksson and art by Nick Roche. And the foreword is also by Andreas Eriksson, if I remember correctly. Yes. And I really like the idea of the theme to be noir, but lots of stories are more gangster stories than noir stories, I would say. But there is this KGB noir that was written published by Moonstone a few years ago. It would be nice to have that, but I guess the reasoning to not have that is that it's too far away from the Swedish Fantomen, and it would take over half the book to include it in full, so that might be the reason. And bad thing about my copy is that the glue or something was bad, so lots of papers just fell off in the back of the book. I hope to get a new copy from my book seller. And I almost forgot the cover. Beautiful cover by Luca. I'm not good at pronouncing name, as you know by now. Erbetta. I think it's a really nice cover. It would go well as a poster. Yes. That's all from me this time. Happy Fantoming.
All right. Thank you very much, Mikael. We do appreciate your work. And as
Yes.
I said, anyone who is in certainly Norway, Hungary, or Brazil, probably we would prefer if you can speak English. I must probably add that, writer, to review your nation's comics for us. We'd really love to hear it, and I know that our
Yes.
listeners would as well.
Yes.
All right. So that means we can get on to the Australian comics, and you can hear us review them in our broad Australian accents. And of course, we're talking about Frew publications, and we're going to start with Frew 1849. And now I can't actually lay my hand on a copy of this. So I hope one of you guys has got it and can hold it up to the screen for the YouTube listeners. There you go, Jermaine, both boys. Thank you very much, lads. Now, this is the second part of Guardian of the Eastern Dark. The Mountain of Doom is the title of the second part. The story by Mikael Sol and illustrated by Cesar Spadari. And of course, it also contains Heart of Darkness Chapter 6, Part 2 in the Dungeons of the Tower. So let's go with Guardians of the Eastern Dark Part 2, Mountain of Doom. Steve, I might ask you to let us know what you thought to begin with, because you weren't with us when we reviewed Part 1. So maybe if you'd like to cover both parts, and then Jermaine, you can chip in with your thoughts on Part 2 in particular.
So part 1 was the bloke on the zebra, wasn't it?
Correct. Yep.
Who was a bit dodgy. He was in it for himself. He's trying to get up the rungs of a ladder in a cult leadership type thing, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
And so he's brought the Phantom into this cult, and I think the leader, who happens to be a woman, does what just about every woman in power does in a traditional Phantom story, and falls for the Phantom and wants to have him as her husband. Have I remembered this correctly?
Yep.
Now their lair is it's not out in the desert, it's not out in the forest, not out in the bush. They've decided to build a castle in the middle of a volcano, which of course is going to end well for anybody.
It is a cool location, though.
It's like something out of James Bond, really.
Yeah. Or Indiana Jones or something like that.
Yeah, Indiana Jones. Yeah, actually, Temple of Doom type vibe coming. Yeah. The cult, they say they're scientists and things like that, but they're a bit incestuous. When I say a bit, I mean very. And I don't want to give too much of the plot away. I'm trying to remember much of it myself.
I think most people have read it, so we probably don't need to.
Well, I think if you're listening to this by now, it is 3 or 4 issues ago. Fair to say that you can press pause on the podcast and go and read your comic if you're trying to avoid the spoilers.
And it's a chronicle.
It features the third Phantom.
Third Phantom. Fantastic cover there. Really putting in the flourishes that the third Phantom could have had, being the theatrical fella that he was.
So, did you enjoy the story?
I remember enjoying it as I was reading it. Yep, but as what happens a lot, I tend to forget the story afterwards, and I didn't make any notes when I read it. I was back from Ireland, and I thought, what am I going to do to relax? I don't know. I've got about a dozen Phantom comics that I need to read. So I read it. I enjoyed it. But it was about one of half a dozen or a dozen that I read to try and catch up.
Now, I must admit, I enjoyed the story, but I think the elements or the background of the story, like with the whole Scientology type of aspect, it almost seemed in the wrong location, being in the third Phantom's era, if you know what I mean. And that might have been one of the reasons why I didn't enjoy it as much as I probably would have normally. It just felt like it was the wrong Phantom.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think if it was a more modern Phantom that could have been doing more with the scientists. Yeah,
it would have probably fitted better if it was more of a modern Phantom.
Yeah, I'd 100% agree with that. It does very much tie into or draw on the Scientology religion or cult or whatever you want to call it, which I haven't looked this up, but I reckon that was developed in the 1950s or 60s. So it's quite a recent creation, for want of a better word, and to suddenly park it in the early 1800s, or even earlier, 1500s, wasn't it? I
think you're confusing cults here, fellas. From what I've read about Scientology, it hasn't been quite what's in this comic.
No, maybe not. But
no, it's not. But
it was very much about scientists.
Elements
yes.
Well, if you look at page 11, I'm holding up the picture as well. Like there's the vats and stuff like that. Like in these panels here, it just seems almost like a gaslight type of era. It might have done a little bit better in the gaslight type of Phantom, or modern as well. It just. But that's I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the backstory with Queen Para and them going through the Phantom and Queen Para with your second wife. I enjoyed that. But I just felt that.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I just felt that the science element was maybe 100 or 150 years too prior.
Yeah, it struck me as one of those stories that probably went down a lot better in Sweden or Scandinavia than it did for Australian audiences. And I hope that that's not an expectation that I bring to Egmont stories as they arrive, but it certainly is a common experience. Yeah, it may well be. But you've just said you didn't enjoy it particularly either. So,
yeah.
Won't go down as one of my favourite stories of the year.
No. The art's good. I enjoyed the art.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoyed like the page 18 onwards where the temple's starting to fall down and the Phantom has to go find his wife and then he has to rescue the kids, and that was quite fast paced and it was enjoyable, like him trying to get out of that, and it was very Indiana Jones-ish, and so I enjoyed that part of it. It's not that I didn't enjoy it, I just thought it might have been, and I don't really know where the title comes into it either.
Well, Mountain of Doom, Temple of Doom,
Doom.
Indiana Jones.
No, The Guardian of the Eastern Dark, Part 1 and Part 2.
Oh, okay.
I just think that I love the title, the whole concept of the Eastern Dark is great. I just think that was kind of...
Wasn't it mentioned in the first one? I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't know. I just...
All right. Well, hand on heart, I did not read Heart of Darkness, so I've got no ability to review that at all. So you need to tell me what you thought.
I do enjoy them. They are harder to get into, and then I'll probably think if I wasn't doing this podcast, I probably wouldn't be reading them as intently. And we're back into a history story. We see the Phantom's eyes, which is a little bit of a bugbear.
Oh, that's mine. Yeah, I didn't like that.
But and then him being captured again and then put in a burning building, I kind of like that. See the Phantom with his boots off as well. It's something you don't very often.
He's not really captured though. He was lulled into a false sense of security, really. But yeah, what I like about this, and you talked about Indiana Jones before, where Indiana Jones came from was like the movie serials where you go to the cinema and then the hero would be trapped on the edge of a cliff, and how's he going to get out of this next time? And that has been a constant throughout just about every episode of Heart of Darkness. How is he going? They put the Phantom or whoever, Diana, in an impossible situation, and you got to wait to the next issue for him to get out.
Yeah,
which is real, old school storytelling. So,
if you were getting these every fortnight, it would be a perfect time as well.
Yeah, absolutely. If it was done every fortnight, absolutely, you'd be hanging out to see what comes next. But poor old Phantom gets screwed over by this fellow who he's just helped. Yeah. So that won't spoil the story for you, so you can read it up when you read it in one hit. Dan later, but he gets down to a dungeon and he ends up in a burning building. There's a fair bit happening in this story.
Yeah, there is.
All right. Well,
I enjoyed it.
You probably haven't convinced me to go back and read it, but I'm pleased. Jermaine is very keen to move on. Listeners will be hearing Jermaine's timer go from time to time. He's now waving the next comic around, telling everybody he needs to get onto it. I'm going to say right now, Germ, you can shut your timer down for us talking about this comic, because this is going to go longer than your 6 minutes or 4 minutes or whatever you're allocating us, because the next comic we're talking about is issue 1850, A Day at the Races. And this is a special comic for a range of reasons. We're all holding it up and waving it around now.
Racing Carnival here in Victoria.
Yeah, well, it is Spring Carnival, and perhaps it should have been come out a little bit later. That's all right. I think they very deliberately timed it to be 1850, so it was a nice round number. It has that little bit of extra impact. Jermaine shakes his head, but I think there's that level of thought that goes into it.
No, I reckon you gave him too much credit. Sorry.
I really give him the credit because we happen to know that this story was submitted to Frew over a year ago and has finally come out. It's the issue by Matt Kine, who is previous guest of the podcast, number 68 or 69 off the top of my head, when we talked about the Demon, which is a character that was based on the Phantom and drawn in the style of Ray Moore. And A Day at the Races is very much drawn and written in the style of I guess the Ray Moore era Phantom. And Matt's done an incredible job of replicating as best as possible, I think, the Ray Moore style. He's written in a Lee Falk style from that era. Frew have done full credit to the story by releasing it with a previously unpublished cover image by Tessa, who was drawing Phantom covers in the 80s and 90s. And also, not only have they included the yellow title bar at the top, which takes us back to that 800, 900 era of Phantom comic, but also have done it in the newsprint rather than the glossy paper covers that we're used to. So it really is quite a nostalgic feel to hold this book up. So that's the introduction to or the overview of the comic. Jermaine, what did you think of A Day at the Races?
Okay. I have there's elements that I absolutely love. There's elements that I'm not completely sold on, and then there's parts that I think might have missed the mark. So I loved the nostalgic feel. I reckon this would be a perfect replica replacement, which we can discuss later. I did like how they took it back to an era where fans, people love that yellow bar for whatever reason. So I thought that was good. Okay, the story confused me a little bit in the sense that I wasn't really sure what the main part of the story was. Was it the development of the Phantom's love interest, or was it the actual adventure with the whole race, with it being fixed and with the bomb and stuff like that? And I've not really, and so there was that bit that I wasn't really sure on what was the main bit. And then when the Phantom foiled the bomb with the horse, they just decided, let's just capture him and just shoot him. And then it was kind of almost like, well, why didn't they do something like that in the first place? It was like they were almost being too elaborate for their own good, just to make the story longish and stuff like that. So I was a little bit confused about that. The artwork, majority of the time, made me feel like I was reading a Ray Moore story, and hats off. And I believe, and I've said it on the podcast before, that that Matt Kine's style is probably the best that I know of an artist who could probably draw in a Ray Moore story. I felt the text, the font, was too small in the speech bubbles and in the like tomorrow and stuff like that. I just felt that was too small. And then some of the grading, the shading, I thought sometimes it was almost too much shading as well. So that's probably areas that I didn't like. But overall, I think it was a good issue, and I'd like to see Frew do this maybe once or twice a year.
What about you, Steve?
As Jermaine's talking there, I think I'm the complete opposite. I didn't like what he liked, and I liked what he didn't like. The shading and what have you, and the text, that really brought me back to those early Phantom stories, those early Ray Moore stories. And I didn't think they were too small, and I wear glasses, and I can see Jermaine doesn't. So, and I thought they were like, I only wear my glasses when I'm reading, and yeah, I thought it was fine. And I thought it suited the style that it was written or illustrated or presented in. Those panels are small. Like you've got 4 rows per comic. Sometimes you might only have 3. With big spaces in between each line, which gives it that really old school feel, from that era. the story with the love interest going as a subplot to the main story. That's, remember that, constantly with Lee Falk stories. You'd constantly be frustrating reading it, saying, why doesn't he just talk to the girl? Why doesn't she just talk to her? And there's an old saying, well, if they did that, there'd be no story. So, excuse me. So that was another element, that harkens back to yesteryear, which I didn't mind. You don't want to see that in every single story, but it suited this well. So it places the story before the fans married, so which is that Ray Moore era. So I like those, and as a whole, I really like the story. I thought it took a little long to get into it. I kind of feel that he's used 10 pages to say what he could have done in 5. That's probably my biggest critique of the whole thing. It took me 2 goes to read it. I read about I probably read the first 10 pages, then was called away to do some chores in the house. Then I came back and really enjoyed the next 20 odd pages of it. So take that as you will. I thought that, the start's probably a little slow, but it really kicks on after that. And I like the story, some elaborate plot to was it bring down society or bring down the Maharaja or whoever it was, the leader, which is what you want in an old school bad guy, some elaborate scheme that, one bullet could do it, but where's the theatre in that?
Well, look,
however, so that's all the stuff I like. I have no nostalgia for this old newsprint style feel of the cover. I have no nostalgia for that yellow. Oh, frozen on the camera here. There we go. I have no nostalgia for that gold bar up the top. I think it makes it feel a lot cheaper. I know people love it for some strange, I have no idea reason why they'd like a comic that feels like something back in the 80s or whatever. I don't mind it looking like something. Like I like the old school. Was it Tessa who did the front cover? I really like that. But I really like a comic that looks like a quality, or feels like a quality comic with the glossy cover and that sort of stuff. And the Frew crew going to this, geez, we can't please everyone. Even Steve's bagging us for a cover, and I am. So, but yeah, it does have that old nostalgia, cheap newsprint paper feel, which some people, like I said, are longing for. I am not. All right. I don't mind this being one off. Like Jermaine said, put it in with the. Actually, no, I wouldn't put it with the annual. I'd put a poster or something with the annual.
Would you deal with it like once or twice a year?
Once a year.
Yeah.
Once a year. Okay. And it works for. I wouldn't say Matt Combs going to do a story every year. Maybe he'd love to, but maybe if they do an old school Ray Moore or something. But then, why would you need to do that if they're just coming out in the collectors, that 200 to 1 series anyway? So I don't know. Within the covers, I liked it. Like, apart from the slow start, I really enjoyed the old school feel of it. I don't enjoy the old school feel of the cover, but I realise it's a total package, and I see why they've done it. Just don't make a habit of it.
Okay, strong words. I hear
came on the long run on that one.
You did. But you softened up first. I'm probably going to go the opposite direction because I hear everything that both of you guys said, and while I don't agree, I acknowledge the points that you've made. I don't necessarily agree with all of the points. Probably, if I start with the criticism, the only critique really I would have of this, I guess, is along Germ's lines around the dialogue and the size of it. I probably felt like it was a smidge overwritten. In the same way that Gaslight, it reminded me of Gaslight in the way that was overwritten in terms a little bit. I thought that there was elements where I disagree that he's taken 10 pages to what could have been done in 5, but I think sometimes there are sentences that are 20 words long that could have been 10.
It's on the same train.
Yeah, but I wouldn't shorten the story at all, and I wouldn't take any elements out of it at all. I think that he's done a marvellous job of identifying ye olde Lee Falk tropes and bringing those in. Probably the only bugbear there I'd say is slightly wrong was the sixth last panel, if you like, on the last page, where the Phantom says to Devil that Diana would be better off with a stay-at-home Johnny. My recollection of that quote would be that it's a stay-at-home Robert. But other than that, I think he's absolutely nailed the Lee Falk style, except that Lee Falk was probably a little bit more succinct. Other than that, I think all of the criticisms that you guys have raised, I actually see as real positives. I think that the fact that I did the same, Steve. I put it down for a little bit during my first reading and walked away and came back to it. And I actually think there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's a really great way to read a comic. And it speaks to the fact that this was written in the structure and style of a daily. I think that it's been written to be able to put down and come back the next day. And you could probably read 3 panels at a time, come back the next day, and it'd be quite an enjoyable story. And I think that stories of Lee Fawkes, and if I think of The Governor and Susie, for instance, that was a rambling on and on and on story that was a little bit repetitive in places, and just took much longer than it could have. And I think if Lee Falk produced that today, he'd probably get exactly that same criticism that you've just raised there. Well, why couldn't you be more succinct? Why couldn't we get this 30-page story down into 22 and then have a Heart of Darkness at the end or whatever? I actually really enjoyed it as that sort of rambling has a negative connotation, but I want to say it in a really positive way, that the story did keep progressing. I agree with what Germ said about the overall idea was a bit fantastic, but I would take Steve's case there of saying, well, that's old school villain. Yes, we're going to do this really elaborate way to kill one person and if we kill that one person, somehow that's going to upset the balance of power throughout the world. That's a bit unrealistic. Yeah. But it's a comic book, you know. So I was prepared to just enjoy that, and I really enjoyed the story, and I'd love to read more of Matt's writing. And the drawing was a little hit and miss. There's some panels where you go, oh, that's clumsy, but that was 2% of the panels. The vast majority of them, I think,
wasn't a drawback.
No,
I didn't really like those 1 or 2 panels. It's like, even Ray Moore missed the mark occasionally.
Exactly.
So as someone who's the oldest one of us and was reading and collecting Phantom comics when you had the yellow bar and stuff like that. So what are your, how did it affect you as someone who has got that nostalgic type of feel? Did it excite you? Did it warm your heart? Would you like to see it more? Would you like to see it again?
I think it did warm my heart. I don't know that excited is the right word, but I did. It really was the fact. Sorry,
I was just trying to get a word from you. You don't have to use the word excited.
No. It was. It did sit you back and go, oh wow, this is what it was like to read a comic when I was 10. And that's, Steve, to answer your question, why people got excited about the yellow bar, because and it probably is people of my vintage and maybe a little bit older who
because it raised the bar again.
No, that's a terrible pun. For about 8 years or more, this was how we enjoyed our Phantom comics, and I got into Phantom comics probably 4 or 5 years before the yellow bar came in, and so through a really formative time, the yellow bar was there, and so that's what a Phantom comic looks like, according to my memory of reading them at that age. The 32 pages is bigger, the new story, even the...
I really like those.
Yeah.
I like those elements. And, when I first started, we had the newsprint style cover, but we didn't have the gold bar. I have no love for that gold bar.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
But I do think that there's a real danger in overdoing it. I don't think that even once a year, I don't think I'll even do it that often, because nostalgia is nostalgia because it reminds you of a bygone era. If suddenly that's the new era, then I think you've overcooked it.
Yeah. So you would go, once every 2 years, 3 years?
No set schedule, just when it's appropriate. And the right story came along in this instance. They had the Tessa covers that they'd found in the cleanup after they purchased the Frew after Jim Shepherd that he'd never used. So it was a bit of planets aligning. If the planets were to align again, by all means, but I don't think you go chasing it. Should Matt Kime do a sequel story in the same way that we've seen in the trade paperback? Absolutely. I would love to see him do some sequels to Raymore stories. But that's what I would chase. Anything else that comes along, by all means, grab it. The idea of deliberately doing something like this for the replica, to replace the replica, and we all know it's going to be really interesting to see what Frew do with the annual this year, because they're firmly on the record. There's not going to be the replica. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out. I really hope that they do not go down the path of including something like this every year for the annual, because I think it would get tired too quickly. Whereas it has its place here, and I think it would get lost. Like, this deserves to be on the newsstand by itself. I think if it's tucked in the bag with the annual, I think it would get lost. And there's too much work that's gone into this for it just to be a freebie bonus. I'd be really fascinated to see at the end of the year what the sales figures are for Frew this year, and does this one sit above the rest? And I suspect it will. I really do suspect it's going to be a...
Is that because everyone reading it ripped the cover, so they had to buy two?
Oh, maybe. I don't think it's any more rippable, but I don't know. I think it's going to be a lot more people who are just walking past and it jumps out at them because of the title bar, because that's how Phantom Comics were when they were reading them 30 years ago.
Yeah.
I think you've spoken really well there, Dan. You probably did the best review of the three of us.
I waited until you guys had already gone and hit all the key points.
You did that. That was good. And the critiques that I had there were probably... I was probably going a bit over the top. 10 pages to say 5 pages worth of stuff. But yeah, it was really, really dense. Like you said, sometimes it was really overwritten. And yeah, I found that it was really, really dense. And I didn't mind having to do a chore or something just to break it up. But yeah, your point about written in that daily style, and that's mentioned there. Tomorrow,
which I think is a really clever, for him to have concentrated on.
You like that? No, it was.
Yeah. So no, I enjoyed it, and
so what out of 10 would you give it? I'll probably give it a 6 or a 7 out of 10. Over the whole package.
I'd be closer to 8.5 probably. Even a 9. Like I really like it. And you know what? It's interesting. Even the Phantom Adventures ad on the back, I think it looks better in the old school newsprint because it's a 1950s ad, and I think that looks better there. So
what about you, Steve?
Well, as a total package, they've pretty much nailed it. They've set out to do something, and they've done it. So as a total package, you can barely take a point off for it. The only way you'd take points off, maybe you didn't like a couple of panels in there where you said,
basically big clumsy. We've done for the last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, I think we'll.
might turn into focus.
All right. I think we'll park 1850 there. Now, anyone who's got any other contributions, because obviously it's a bit of a landmark issue, and that's why we've spent a bit more time talking about it. It's going to stand out when we look back at 2019. I think this is one that, like it or love it, it's going to stand out as being something different. So, if you've got any other comments, put those in the comments below if you're watching the YouTube video, or hit us up on Facebook or whatever, and reply to the links. There's a comment board underneath the page on chroniclechamber.com as well. So by all means, we'd love to hear from listeners and viewers to see what you think. All right. Now, it's ironic in a way that 1851, which followed immediately after that, is a replica series. It's number 21. It's been anticipated, certainly by us for a little while, that this is going to be finally the unveiling of what we've sort of read the tea leaves, that they seem to be doing the same cover for every 10 issues, for 10 consecutive issues for the replica series. And we were waiting to see what was coming up. And Jermaine's holding it up now in the YouTube. You can see it there on the screen. Brand new image, a really stunning image too for mine. What are your thoughts on this one, guys?
Yeah, absolutely love the image. I'll tell you what I really enjoyed was the artist, actually, the cover artist, he actually wrote a post about what it meant for him to draw the Phantom. And
on
he shared
Facebook?
on Facebook, and we've shared it on our social media. So if you go to chroniclechamber.com on Facebook, you'll be able to dig it out. But for me, that was probably the thing that I loved the most about this issue was reading his story.
What was the artist's name again?
Oh, I on purpose didn't do it because I forgot.
Yeah.
Right there, open it up. Isn't it in the cover?
Yeah.
It's actually not. It's actually not.
It's not in the cover.
I feel like it's Clayton something. That's going to be wrong now that I've said it out loud.
Hang on. Where is it?
I'll keep talking about it while you look that up, Jim, because you'll be the quickest one to find it.
Yeah, Clayton Barton.
Oh, it was Clayton. There you go.
There you go, mate. So reading Clayton's story, that's what I probably got the most out. Was like, here's a young guy, and he's a young guy. We've got these artists like with Jamie, Jeremy, Grange, and and some of these other ones, Paul Mason, some of these other younger guys, our vintage. Who read the Phantom, who've got the same love for the character, who grew up on the character as much as us, and now they're getting to do it, and their love is coming back, their love is getting stronger. And that's what I probably got the most out of this, was that.
Yeah, for sure. So do you like the cover?
I do love the cover, but I like the story behind the cover even more.
Okay. It's obviously following a theme in the sense that the first 10 issues were the photo of the monkey's bust, and actually if I slide a little bit this way, you can probably see one of those there. So it was just a photo of the monkey's bust, and then the 11 through to 20 were the Eden Smalls take on the Phantom bust, which was a sculpture, and we got a photo of that. And now we've got an artistic rendition, basically, of a bust. I really like it's blue though. What are your thoughts there?
See, that doesn't bother me.
I just thought it was like shading. It was in the shadow.
Yeah, like at night time or something like that. Yeah,
down by the bog. I don't know.
It's probably there's a hint of purple down here. Is probably.
To be fair, all the Phantom comics that you read and then you grew up on, the Phantom on the cover wasn't purple; it was grey. So
I just thought I'd raise the point. The stories inside, we don't often spend a lot of time on the internals of the. There's a case in point. Well, that's purple, the very first one. Case in point, I haven't actually gone through and reread these comics this time. Have either of you guys?
Not these ones. But that's mainly because, they're great stories, and that's the problem with in my opinion, with the replica, is that there's nothing wrong with the stories. It's the presentation that's the problem.
Well, so the presentation has changed, or do you want the presentation to be different inside? Because I must say, I spent a bit of time looking at this, and then as soon as I open it, I'm like, oh, that's right, this is a replica series, and that's what this looks like. So, yeah. I do hope that we don't have 10 of these and suddenly everyone's getting tired of Clayton's image by the end of it, because it's a ripper. It
doesn't deserve that.
No.
I reckon 5 max. Then one from Clayton.
Yeah.
It's just because it's a brilliant image, but I don't want to be sitting here in 2 years' time going, oh yeah, another image from Clayton, because that's doing it not doing it justice.
Yeah. All right. Now, we need to move on to Phantom's World number 10. Now, I'm going to get you guys started talking on this, and I've got to work out how to plug my laptop in because it's about to die. So I'm going to do that while you guys get started on that. But Phantom's World number 10, it's got the Fellman cover on it again with almost the target there. I really like the image on the back. It's got 4 Italian stories. The first one is by, we don't know the authors of any of these. The first story is Storm of Madness by Raul Bozzilli, or sorry to our Italian listeners that I've completely stuffed up that. And then the last 3 are all, last 3 stories are, I guess, we think probably issues 2, 3, and 4 of a longer story or a sequence of stories, all by Mario Pedrazzi as the artist. So I'll hand over to you guys to have a bit of a chat about those while I plug my laptop in and get the power happening again.
Sounds good. Did you read it, Steve?
No, this is going to be a quick one, so you can just go for it. Or didn't you read it either?
No, I read it. This is actually, because Fantasma's World's been a little bit hit and miss, which we've all commented on it. But the first story is good, but the elements is a little bit dated in a sense that the way the Phantom deals with the bad guys who are all these mentally insane people, and the Phantom knocks them out and deals with them a little like he wouldn't deal with them if that story was written today, because
the product of its time.
Yeah, exactly. Mental health and stuff like that there's a lot more awareness and stuff like that in today's world than there is back then. But the art's brilliant. It's big panels. There's lots of Phantom in it. So yeah, I did like it, but I think like something like this, like it's good to see it and for it to be included, but it should be at the back of the page. Like, like sometimes when you have, because the last three stories are the better stories, and so they would have been better if they were at the front, and then this other story could have been in the filler at the back of the comic, kind of almost hidden. Like, how we all have that crazy uncle or something that you only invite around at Christmas time and you kind of hide him, at weddings and stuff like that. That's kind of like what this first story is. It would have been better at the back of the comic, kind of hidden in a way, because it's not as strong as the first three stories, in my opinion. I really enjoyed the last three stories. It would have been nice to kind of get the prequel or the fourth story that was the first story, but I think it didn't really matter too much. Obviously, majority of us have never read it, so I was able to get into this story and being able to follow it, and it wasn't really jumpy. Like sometimes if you don't get the first story, it's like, hang on, why is this or why is that, or you get confused. It wasn't really the case in here. So really enjoyed the last three stories, and the artwork is amazing. And the storytelling's pretty good as well. So
what about you?
Everyone, you've already had your say, Steve?
He hasn't read it.
I haven't read it.
Okay.
So I was being sold on it by Jermaine.
Okay. Well, if I was going to sell it, I came back in just as Jermaine was talking about the order of the stories, and the explanation that possibly is for that is that they are in chronological order, and that A Storm of Madness was L'Umore Mascherado 76, and the other three stories are after that into the hundreds. So maybe Dudley's decided to do them in chronological order. Otherwise, I think you made a fair point about possibly reordering those. I would direct you, Steve, in the first instance to Dudley's message from the publisher, because I actually thought this was really informative, and a lot of the time I don't like to read the message of from the publisher until after the fact, but the fact that I read it beforehand, I thought in this instance was quite handy. Yep. He did what I probably would have asked him to do with the Phantom Adventures book, which was to give a bit of a mention about the contextualization of the story. I'm not sure if Jim mentioned it, but so the fact that the inmates were treated poorly or talked about poorly, Dudley explained why and gave some contextualization about the time period and all that sort of stuff, which I thoroughly agreed with, and I thought made the story more palatable as you read it, because you sort of had a moment to set yourself.
And he also, because I think you raise a good point. If there wasn't that context beforehand, you probably would have read it and you would have gone, "Ooh, I'm not sure about this." But because you had that context, you're like, "Okay, I can live with it."
Yeah,
and you can enjoy the comic for what it is, rather than being put off by it. So it's a very good point.
Yep. And then his explanation that we had these two stories, and then it became evident that there was probably a prequel. So we got that, and then we translated that and we put it in. And then we realized, it's probably a sequel to a prequel, and we don't have that. And he's in. And what do you do? This is publishing, and so he explained that. And so therefore,
I thought it was great.
Yeah, a little bit of a peek behind the curtains to find out, here's the reality of what they're dealing with, and the the trials that they go through to bring us these comics. So,
and then one was originally translated. They couldn't find the Italian version, so they got the French version. That was so it went Italian to French, back to English.
Yeah.
It was great to get that peek behind the curtain.
Yeah. So I enjoyed that, and I probably didn't miss what I guess was issue 1 out of these 4, which we don't have, but I didn't miss that until probably right at the end of issue 4, which had those, I guess, ties back to the very beginning, and particularly, and this is a spoiler, Stephen, sorry, but you should have read it. There's a the Phantom.
Press pause and come back.
Yeah. So if you want to press pause right now, Steve, the Phantom does escape at the end by using a gift that Garand gave him. There you go. I'll explain that. I won't tell her what it is. He escapes using a gift that Garand gave him. Now, we didn't know that Garand had given him a gift. That's when we found out. So maybe that information was in episode 1. And so, again, without Dudley's explanation, that might have been a criticism. As it is, we go, okay, fair enough. So, 2 questions about Phantom's World. Well, 3, I guess. Number 1, we do have an ad at the bottom of Dudley's thing for Phantom's World 11. Now, I was led to believe, perhaps by myself, that Phantom's World 10 was going to be the end of Phantom's World as a run.
Thought it was 12.
So we're going to see another 2, you think?
I believe so.
Okay.
But don't quote me on that one.
Okay, Dudley. Jermaine says 12. So,
yeah, as if he listens to me.
And if he did, would he pay attention?
Probably.
Sorry, Steve. You thought it was 12?
Oh, there you go. Maybe it's just Dan that doesn't pay attention.
Yeah, maybe it's just me. Question 2. Does the fact that we are seeing all of these Lumo Mascherado reinterpretations and translations, does that increase or devalue the issues that you may have collected of the Italian comic, the original? As someone who collects these sorts of things, I imagine that you've got a few of these comics in your collection, perhaps even these books.
I've probably got about 200 plus of them.
Right.
From the Italian French version. That's a very good question, actually. No. If anything, it probably makes me want to get them even more and to complete the set. That's a very good question. I'm being put on the spot here. So, probably because I'll probably want to get more. Because probably, I guess before I was mainly collecting them for the cover.
Right.
But now it's like, these stories aren't that bad, and then maybe I could use the app on my phone and actually read them, which we've got a post about if you want to go on ChronicleChamber.com.
All right, cool.
So that's a very good question. I think for me, it probably values them more.
Okay, cool. Would be interested to hear listeners' response to that one as well. And finally,
I think it just stays constant. I don't think it goes up or down. I don't think it matters.
Yeah, and I'm probably in that boat too, Stephen. I asked that question of Jermaine because I know he collects them, and neither you or I do have any of the Italian comics. So, final question, I guess, about A Phantom's World, and I guess it's to do with the concept of Phantom's World. It was pitched at the beginning as a way of bringing to us stories from around the world that we may not have seen before. Now, this is 10 of the collections. There was those 2 or 3 standalones prior to them announcing it as a separate issue. And I reckon of the 10, 9 have been Italian gatherings, and there's that one Brazilian. Yeah. What do you think about that? Are we a bit disappointed? Up front, I'm a bit disappointed that we haven't seen more than just a bunch of Italian translations.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that the Italian ones are a lot more readily available. Mm-hmm. And then maybe, because I remember in the Brazil one, they did talk about how they had issues with the translation from the Brazil. So maybe the translator is more confident in translating Italian than, say, Brazilian or Turkey or German. I would also say that... what?
Not Brazilian.
Oh, Brazilian. Yeah. Okay. Well, no, I was talking about the Brazilian comics, not the language. But yeah, valid point. I think also the German ones that I've seen are very poor quality. So they probably don't really deserve that much of a look. Like if we're complaining that half of the Italian ones are very hit and miss, the German ones, from what I've seen, are even more miss than these ones.
Yeah.
It would have been nice to see more Brazilian comics because it widens our experience.
Yeah, and I guess that's what I was sort of looking forward to with the concept of Phantom's World. That's what I was sort of expecting.
Yeah, but I think a lot of it's got to do with the fact that the Italian ones are probably more readily available than the Brazilian ones.
All right, fair
but
points.
I think that's a very good point as well.
All right, any other comments on Phantom's World, Germ, before we move on?
Now, I must admit, there was a lot of people commenting that they haven't got their issue yet.
I had to go and get this off the newsstand actually because my subscription hasn't arrived.
Yeah, and so what I think's actually happened, because this is what happened with me, and I'm not completely sold on how it transcribed, but I think what's happened for a lot of people is that when they got that giant size renewal, that was actually the end of their subscriptions for the 3. It finished at issue 9 or issue 10 or whatever. So the reason why they haven't got the next Phantom's World one is because their subscriptions actually ended. Now, in my opinion, Frew didn't really explain that too well. I had to actually talk to someone at Frew, and then they explained, oh yeah, you know, the subscription ended, and that's why you haven't got this issue. You're going to have to buy it. But then the other question that I have is that if you buy issue 10 from the Frew website, you don't get the Universe card at the same time because you're not buying. It's only part of a subscription. So I think that's a little bit messy, that whole type of thing. Now, I think Frew might have been a little bit better if they had explained why they're not getting their issue when they sent out the subscription notification. It might have been a little bit better if they had said, you know, you have 1 or 2 issues of Kid Phantoms, part of your subscription ends here. You're not going to get Phantom's World. You know, so I think that might have been could have been a little bit more clearer.
I'd agree with that because the subscription notification that I got, if I remember rightly, because it's a month or so ago, came with the giant size, and it said that your giant size subscription is over. You need to renew that, and it was the $32 or whatever just for giant size, and it's $100 and something if you've got all 4 of the Phantom's World and the Kid Phantom. So there was no option to resubscribe to Phantom's World.
Well, they're not having the subscription for that. But then the problem is that people like you and I who want that was not explained. It probably would have been better. Look, we're not doing a full subscription.
Yeah.
However, if you still buy it from our website, we'll include the Universe card or something like that. So I just think there was, and I wasn't the only one who got confused and was saying,
no, I certainly was. And I'm still a little bit filthy, to be honest, that you may not be able to see it on the camera, but I had to remove the sticker and there's a bit of residue there. So not excited about that. But it's Phantom's World, so I'm not going to get too stressed about it either.
That's all I get mine from the comic shop. No stickers.
Yeah. My comic shop doesn't stock them.
You've just mentioned the Universe card a couple of times. Are the Universe cards going to be like a casualty in the demise of Kid Phantom and Phantom's World?
Good question.
I don't think so, purely because of a past conversation past comment that Glenn made on Facebook when he said that. We've got them all printed, and then we just grab them. We just grab one in no particular order and include it with a comic. I would say that we're probably just going to be in with giant size, but we're not going to get them as regularly.
Well, that's going to be only 4 per year instead of 12, isn't it? So it's going to be, I guess that means that their stock of Universe cards is going to last them a whole lot longer. All right. That's a good point. Thanks for raising that one, Steve, because the Universe cards, they're certainly an addition to my collection that I really enjoy. And
I like them.
And I get a second one for Gus as well as a 10-year-old to find out a little bit more about Phantom Universe. And he enjoys collecting cards, and it's a great way for him to meet characters from stories he hasn't read yet. Anyway, hopefully they will continue. All right, now coming to that part of the run sheet, we say that we've got others here, the Brazilian comics, the Mythos comics. Now, I have asked already if people would like to review those for us. We do know that at least one of these is it's not just, is a reprint or a Brazilian. Oh, Jermaine's waving them around. Looks like he's got copies. So talk us through them, Jermaine.
Jermaine, we can't read, we can't see them.
I'm trying to say, oh, I've got them. I can actually talk about them. Now,
you were in a thumbnail there, and I still saw them the way you were semaphoring around.
The reason why we want people to do it is because it takes time for me to actually physically get a copy to be able to review it. Okay, so this is of the regular series, number 1, O Fantasma number 1. It's got a different cover, which I can't remember.
It's very glossy.
Yeah, it's very glossy. It's a glossy, it's a thick, like you can...
Well, this would be right up Stephen's window. It's completely the opposite of 1850.
That's it, very the opposite. Now, these are all news stories for the Brazilian audience. Majority of them are Team Fantomen stories, and this actually includes 2 stories. Now, the thing that gets me with this is that the majority of Brazilian fans have no understanding of the current story arc when it comes to the Team Fantomen stories, i.e. this story is about Sala having her baby, part 1 and part 2.
Oh, well.
It's a very...
Can't believe you bothered to get that all the way from the other side of the globe. Chuck it straight in the bin.
All right. It's a very odd... It's a very odd choice of stories to include. Doesn't matter where you sit on the whole argument, whether you like it or not, to include a story with no backstory and where you've come in 3/4 of the way, and there's for those who came in late, but you don't know anything about Sandal. You don't know how you don't know anything about her, and then you're getting a story as your first issue. I just think it was a bit of an odd choice. The quality of the comic is top notch. I must admit, I actually enjoy Henya Bade in colour more than what I actually thought I would. So I enjoyed it. I think the Brazilians enjoyed it more.
Because they could read it.
yeah, exactly. So that's issue 1. I don't have issue 2 yet, and issue 3 is just about to come out. So,
what was the other one you were waving around?
Okay, the other one is the Cronicas do Fantasma number 1. So what this is the reprint stories of the dailies and Sundays and stuff like that. Now, most people have seen that cover before. And then you've got the back cover, which is from the old Pioneer comics. Now, it's a square bound. I'm not sure if the video is doing that. And it's quite a hefty book. It's smaller than, say, a normal comic, as you can see.
Like a digest size,
together. Yeah. It's like a digest size. It's now it's in black and white. It's got a couple of pages of backstory just about the history of the Phantom, about the stories. It's got Jungle Patrol, so it's a nice classic story. It's got this. What story is that one? I can't remember the story. Let me click on that link. That will actually tell me the stories. It's got the frame up, the Scarlet Sorceress, the Ismani Cannibals, which is got the Marshall sisters in it. Diana and the Bank Robbers. So that's, got Diana playing the Phantom, and then also the Honeymooners as well. So there's one story of Ray Moore and the rest of Wilson McCoy. The panels are very good. It's a very good top quality print. The print is better than what we see in the replica issues. For obvious reasons. So there's been care done in this production. So I believe these come out once every bi-monthly, and then the regular issue comes out once a month. So I think they're up to number 3 of this already. where there's only been one of this. And then there's been the trade paperback issue, which has got the ring, which I am getting one of those sent through as well. So, yeah, so it's exciting to get some of the stuff, and I'm looking forward to continually getting them. So this is number one. Number two is coming out in October, so it'll be out or it's already out or just come out. So that was October. This one came out in July. So what's that? July. So every 2 or 3 months.
Cool. All right, very good.
So that's those. The next one I want to review is I just want to make mention of this.
That's not from Brazil?
No. So that's all of Brazil, and this is the next one. So this is just the Hermes one. This is the Sundays one. Now, the main thing...
So for those people who are not watching the video, Jerm, can you... Which volume?
Okay, so this is volume 6, which covers 1956 to 1960.
Cool.
So this is going to be the last of their Wilson McCoy stuff. So everything they do from now is going to be Cy Barry, which I think people are going to be more excited in picking up. Now, we've all seen Hermes. We know the quality. We know the dust jacket. We know how heavy they are and stuff like that. One of the things I just wanted to make mention, which they have copped a little bit of criticism, is, and this is up on the videos, but also so Stephen and Dan can actually see it, is the difference in the Sunday. So there's one with 3 tiers in black and white. There's one 3 tiers in colour.
Hold it a bit high, mate.
And there's one, I'm trying to actually see it as well. And then there's one in 2 tiers in colour. So that is, there's another one with another story. So this is probably, it's a little bit of a bugbear with some collectors, that the fact that, you know, you've got 3 tiers, 2 tiers. With the 2 tiers, you're missing out on a couple of panels up the top. And while it does detract from the overall production, I think it's still okay in the sense that you still get the story and it's better quality than what we've probably seen before. I do think some of the colouring is a little bit, that it doesn't look like it's been touched up. Now, they do make mention why they haven't got, where was it? In here, they do talk about why they haven't got 3 panels in colour. So if you do get it, I think it is worth getting it if you can afford it. But they do explain it. But overall, it's still a pretty good product.
One other thing we know about Hermes Press is that the product that they produce, and you know, time is a criticism of them. We accept that.
Yeah.
One thing that is universally acknowledged is that the quality is the best that they can possibly do. And if they have only included a two row strip instead of the 3, it's because the 3 probably doesn't exist. They would have moved heaven and earth to try and find it. So yeah, fair enough. People can sit back and criticise it, but I guess the gauntlet would be laid out then. Well, you go and find the 3 rows.
Yeah. And Dan has done that, and no one's come back.
Yeah.
And the fact is, would they then delay it by another year?
Yep.
In the hope of finding it, or do they release it with the best they can?
The best they can. That's exactly right.
Yep. And I think it's worth doing.
Yeah. Very good. All right. And look, for people who are listening to this as a podcast, and we know that that's the vast majority of our audience, we are starting to pick up a lot more viewers and commenters on our YouTube channel since we've moved to this new software and the better videos. Just those last 5 or 10 minutes of Germ showing us the Brazilian and the Hermes Press books really validates, I think, going and having a look at it on YouTube, because I've really appreciated the look at those. And those are books that I wouldn't actually otherwise see, because they are beyond my reach, or whether that's people that I know in another country, or the credit card won't stretch that far. So good on you, Germ, for bringing those to us, and we hope that our audience enjoy having a look at those. So go and check that out. All right.
I must admit, I was a little bit worried when Jermaine said he was going to show us his Brazilian, but in the end, it was all good.
Touche. All right. Well, I don't think we can do anything better than that. Well, let's move on.
Jermaine's lost it. There we go.
We said that we were going to keep this short, and we sort of have. We sort of haven't. We got carried away, but I think for good reason. We're going to move into the outro now, though. Thank you very much for listening or watching. We hope that you enjoy what we do. We certainly love what we do, and we love the fact that a few hundred or whatever it is listeners tune in and listen. If you really appreciate the website, the social media work that Jermaine does, the podcast, whatever it is, and you feel like you could help us out do what we do, then feel free, of course, to head over to our Patreon page, patreon.com/ChronicleChamber, or there are links on our website, ChronicleChamber.com. And help us out in any way that you can. $1 a month, it all makes a difference, and it helps us do some of the things that we do, including things like bring those Lightning Strikes books to Australia and send them out as gifts or prizes or whatever. You do have access to the P3, the Phantom Preservation Project, which is a vast bulk of digital Phantom stuff, a treasure trove, if you like, as well as getting some first access to some news, as well as seasonal prizes, and there's a whole raft of things that we try to.
Should we talk about the next seasonal prize?
Yeah, by all means. What have you got coming up for us, German? I know this is a personal project of yours that you're really enjoying.
Yes. So the next seasonal prize, basically for the videos I'm just holding up now. So these are the trading cards, but they're just not normal trading cards. They're actually trading cards signed by the actual artists. So the next seasonal prize that you will be able to choose 9 that you want that's in this pile. We've got probably around another 20 out. So just a bit of a sample. There's a signed card from Keith Williams, Jan Bilecki, Marcelo Baez, Reno from the Philippines, and then there's a couple of others that we got previously from the last one. So there's a Jeff Weigel, there's a Jamie Johnson, Jason Paulus with a bit of editing in the back, there's a Paul Mason, and then there's a Shane Foley as well, and then there's a whole heap of others that we've got coming as well. So the next seasonal prize for our Patreons will be that you get to choose 9 of these.
Yeah, and so that we say seasonal because it comes out at the start of each season. So 1st of December is when summer starts. So anyone who's a Patreon member as of the 1st of December will be entered into that raffle draw. So all details of that are on our Patreon page, which is linked, as I said, from our website. See, now I'm reading all of those dot points of Germ saying I'm going to show the cards, etc., etc. Should have had a look at those earlier. The Jim Aparo comp coming up. What's that, Germ? I wasn't surprised at all, because I was reading this run sheet.
Okay, so we've been given this book to review, and the review will be coming up very, very soon.
And again, for audio listeners, what's the book?
Okay, yeah, I'm getting there. The book is the Jim Aparo's Complete Charlton Comics hardcover book. So for those who may remember, it's like the Don Newton one, but this is for the Jim Aparo one. This one actually came out first. So we've got a review, which will be coming out in probably the next week or so. And then once that comes out, we'll be having a competition for this, and how you can win it will be on social media. So make sure, if you like this book and you want it delivered to you for free, make sure you keep an eye on us on our social media, and then you can be in the running to be able to win that.
Excellent. So we do it for long enough, and finally you offer me up a decent segue. Our social media links, if you want to keep an eye on those and get the opportunity to win that Jim Aparo book from Hermes Press, you need to be on Facebook or follow us on Facebook, where there is the Chronicle Chamber. No, it's not. It needs updating. We're just chroniclechamber.com on Facebook now, or you can also be in touch with us via the Phantom Collector group, because we are admins of that. On Twitter, we're at Chronicle Tweets. We're on Instagram at Chronicle Chamber. We're not yet on TikTok, but I need to have a word with the boys about that at our upcoming AGM. As always, you guys got good ideas for our upcoming TikTok account?
I'm against TikTok only because I get sick of the ads when I want to watch YouTube.
I would have thought as a music teacher you'd be all over TikTok.
I know the kids
on TikTok. Time's going.
I don't know what TikTok is.
All right. In the meantime, of course, if you're not technologically savvy enough to know what TikTok is or how to follow us there, you found us here on iTunes or Spotify or whatever it is that you're listening to us via. So make sure you hit the subscribe button so you can keep in touch with what we're doing. Or you may be all over your other apps for Android, like it's a Podbean, Player FM, Castbox, Listen Notes, whatever that may be. So thank you very much again, everyone, for listening to us. Thank you, Jermaine and Steve, for sitting down on a Sunday night and talking fandom. It's always a great way to end the weekend, and looking forward to catching up and doing it all again in the near future.
Yeah, and congratulations, Steve, for staying awake. And Dan, you did a good job in trying to keep this as tight as possible.
And that's said with a tongue very firmly planted in cheek, I know. But that's all right. Once we get talking fandom, it's hard to stop. So anyway, yes. Until next time, everybody, happy fandoming.
Happy fandoming.
Happy fandoming.
All right, very good.
500 years ago, he washed ashore the sole survivor of a shipwreck. And upon the skull of the man who killed his dad, he said, I'm mad, I must eradicate piracy, injustice and cruelty, and all my sons will follow me, so evildoers will believe that this man cannot die. The Phantom, the ghost who walks. The Phantom, enemies beware. The Phantom's always there, but you won't find the Phantom. He finds